After the first battle, we were ordered deeper into the mountains of Laos. The roads were just narrow, broken paths winding through endless forest and thick fog. We carried everything on our backs: guns, ammunition, food. Sometimes we walked all night, only stopping to rest when the sun finally came up. The air was a constant mix of smoke and damp leaves. The sounds of the jungle, the buzzing insects, and distant gunfire became a soundtrack to our march. Some of the men were already exhausted. Their boots were torn, and the straps of their heavy packs had rubbed their shoulders raw. But nobody dared to complain. The officers kept repeating, "The enemy is close. Stay quiet, move quickly." So we moved like ghosts through the jungle. One morning, after a brutal climb over a steep ridge, we stumbled upon a small village hidden in the trees. The houses were made of bamboo and thatch, chickens were scratching in the dirt, and the comforting smell of wood smoke drifted from cooking fires. When the villagers saw us, they scattered and hid. They thought we were enemies. But then I heard them speaking. It was a language that made my heart leap. It was Hmong. I turned to my brother and whispered, "They're Hmong, our people." The officer ordered us to surround the village, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. An old man, leaning on a bamboo walking stick, slowly stepped out. His voice trembled as he asked in Hmong, "Who are you? Why do you come here with guns?" I wanted so badly to answer him, to tell him we were Hmong too, but we were under strict orders not to speak without permission. Instead, our officer shouted at the old man in Vietnamese, demanding food and supplies. The villagers, terrified, obeyed. As they brought us rice and vegetables, I saw the fear in their eyes. Children clung to their mothers, hiding. The old man looked at me one more time, and in a low voice he said, "We are Hmong too. Why do you fight us?" His words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't answer. I just lowered my head in shame. That night we camped near the village, but I couldn't sleep. The old man's face was burned into my mind. It was then I realized just how far I was from home and how truly lost I had become. We were fighting in a land where the people spoke our language, wore our clothes, shared our blood, and yet we were told they were the enemy. My brother sat beside me, quietly cleaning his rifle. After a long, heavy silence, he said, "Nyaj, this war is not ours. We don't even know who we're killing anymore." I nodded, but what could we do? We were soldiers, trapped by orders we couldn't refuse. At dawn, the commander delivered new orders. "Prepare to move south. The Hmong guerrillas are gathering there. We must destroy their base." Hearing those words made my chest tighten. Destroy their base. The people we had just met. People who looked like our fathers and mothers. As we shouldered our weapons and marched away, I glanced back one last time. Smoke rose peacefully from the village chimneys, and the cry of crows echoed through the mountains. In that moment, I knew this war had already stolen something from me I could never get back. The next morning, we moved before sunrise. The air was cold, heavy with fog. We marched in silence, following the sound of rushing water somewhere far below. The commander said we were close to the Hmong resistance base. The deeper we went into the jungle, the darker it became. The birds stopped singing. You could see every soldier's breath in the cold morning air. I felt that same fear from my first battle, but this time it was deeper. It wasn't just the fear of dying. It was the fear of what we were about to do. By noon, we reached the edge of a deep valley. From our spot on the hill, we could see small bamboo and leaf houses scattered below. Smoke drifted gently from their fires. The commander raised his binoculars and whispered, "There, that's their base." He ordered the artillery crews, including my brother's team, to set up the 105mm cannons on the ridge. My heart sank into my stomach. I knew that down in that valley were people among people. Maybe families, not just soldiers. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Orders were orders. The commander raised his hand and screamed, "Ready, fire!" The roar of the cannons shattered the silence of the valley. The ground shook beneath us. Shells exploded below, and I watched in horror as fire spread across the thatched roofs. Cries floated up from the smoke, cries that sounded far too much like home. Suddenly, the radio crackled. The forward scouts were reporting that women and children were still in the camp. The commander hesitated for just a second, then shouted, "Keep firing, no mercy." I saw my brother freeze. His hands were shaking as he aimed the cannon. He turned and looked at me, his face pale, his eyes filled with a pain I'll never forget. "Muaj, KHWB, they're Hmong, we can't do this." But the officer behind him screamed, "Fire, soldier." My brother looked down at the ground, and for a horrible moment I thought he would obey, but then he dropped the shell. He stepped back from the cannon and shouted, "I won't shoot them." The officer immediately drew his pistol and struck my brother hard across the face. "You coward, do as you're told." My brother stumbled, blood running down his cheek. I lunged forward to help him, but two soldiers grabbed me and held me back. The officer raised his gun again, and for a terrifying heartbeat, I thought he was going to execute my brother right there. Just then, a whistle pierced the air. The enemy was counterattacking. Bullets ripped through the trees around us. That chaos saved both of our lives. The Hmong resistance fighters fought back fiercely from the valley below, their gunfire echoing everywhere. Our unit was forced to retreat back into the forest. Explosions tore through the fog, and in the confusion, I lost sight of my brother. When night finally fell, the battlefield was silent again, lit only by the faint, distant glow of burning huts in the valley. I stumbled through the darkness, calling his name over and over. "Brother, where are you?" But there was no answer, only the whisper of the wind and the bitter smell of smoke. That night, I sat alone under the trees, clutching his empty ammunition belt. My tears fell onto the dirt, mixing with the ash and blood on the ground. From that day on, I understood. This war didn't just take lives, it took our souls. I no longer knew who the enemy was. The faces I saw in my dreams weren't strangers. They were my own people. The sound of that 105mm cannon still echoes in my head, and I can't stop seeing my brother's face as he refused to fire, brave, defiant, and so very human. I knew then that if I stayed in this war any longer, I would lose myself completely. Thank you for listening to my story. If this moved you, please consider subscribing for more stories like this one. Your support means the world. Stay safe.